Hello, my name is Martin and welcome back to another video. So, Cornbrook 5, where are we?
We're over in West Gorton on probably the windiest day of the year.
Windiest day, definitely windiest day of the year, yeah. So West Gorton, this is Bennett Street that we're on, and that church there, St Benedict's Church, is probably one of the original features in this area. It's going to feature again in a moment, or in a bit, in a photograph. Hundreds and hundreds of terrace streets around here at one time. Now it's been redeveloped. So the Cornbrook is beneath us now in this area. I'm going to show you a map of where we are, and it's pretty much where we left off at Cornbrook 4. Okay, so here we are again with our very crude map of the River Cornbrook. I say river, small water course, but this map does the job. It starts over here in East Manchester from Little Springs, and it runs this way. From East Manchester, south of the city centre, and it runs this way and it outflows into the Manchester Ship Canal, or what would have been the River Irwell back in the day. You can see there put direction of flow. Our journey was upstream going this way, and in this episode, episode 5, we're going to cover this bit here where you see the green ellipse that's covering here around the Bennett Street area of West Gorton over to near where Ashbury Station is in Manchester, if you know that. After this section here, it's open. There's an open section, and that will be another episode of the Cornbrook Upper Reaches, or part 6, or whatever you want to call it. But that is our episode today. Right, let's drill down into that area in a moment.
Right, start getting bags down to me.
Bags down.
You have to pass one to one and then next to the other. Pass mine. Is it? Yeah.
Oh.
What was that, James?
This is the last section underground. You will see the Cornbrook come to an end here. So it's probably also the worst section in terms of filthy water. So we've got James here. Hi. We've got Roy here.
Hello.
And we've got Marcus.
Yo.
And of course, up top, we need to mention Nick, who's guarding where we got in, and the man behind the scenes that makes it all happen. So let's crack on. Okay, so refresher time again. So if you remember in part 4, there was a split. The Black Brook had joined the Cornbrook here. And we're just over again near Bennett Street, East Manchester, just off Hyde Road here. This is a very old map. This map's dated 1830s. But you can see here where this split is. And we abandoned here because the Cornbrook got almost horrendous at this point here. Let's look at that area there where the Black Brook joined the Cornbrook, and you'll probably remember where the split was, and we abandoned episode 4. So here we go. Here's a recap from Cornbrook 4 and where it ended. You can see from this picture here, we've got the Cornbrook splits into two, and on the left hand side, the Black Brook used to join it. The water flow is coming towards us. Black Brook no longer flows through that bit there, but that's in Cornbrook 4. The Cornbrook is coming from the right hand side. Roy went into that right hand side of the Cornbrook and ended up to his thighs in water because all the floor, all the bed of the watercourse had eroded away. Stunk terribly of diesel and fumes in here now. He went forward or upstream, and we got to eventually a dreaded low bit.
Right, so as you can see up ahead, I'm on my knees. It's very stoopy, and it runs up towards Gorton now for some time before it actually gets any bigger. It is horrendous. I did it a number of years ago and had to come back, and I said never again, and guess what? Never again. Next time you see us, we'll be on the other side of this.
Right, I am not liking the look of this. This is horrific.
Oh yeah. Well, it does shrink and it's stinky. Yeah, and I'll say the water quality is a bit questionable here. However, it does get a bit better further up, we're pleased to know.
You can see all this here. You can see all this with my new laser pointer. What is it? This is from buildings, I think, that have been pulled down and just shoved it in here. and it's just been gradually pushed aside over the years. There's pipes, there's metal, there's all sorts in there, and it's horrible. Is there a sewer leaking in here somewhere?
Well, it's questionable.
Well, this is like a sewer. So we're heading now behind the camera in an easterly direction we're heading towards Gorton now. So you see, this is what we're up against, this horrible grey water, as you can see here, and it's horrific, and it stinks. And it stinks like it shouldn't stink. So, somewhere, we think there's a sewer leaking in somewhere. And I'm going to crouch down now. So here we are now above ground where the Black Brook used to join the Cornbrook. Tell us about this area.
Right, so most people might remember the freight yard that was cleared here before these houses started being built. It's right next to the West Coast Railway line here, coming out of Piccadilly. What else was on here? The area is known as St Mark's back in the day. There was a big ironworks to my left, Union Ironworks. Also famous Galloways Boiler Works that contributed quite a lot to industry. Quite a famous big factory, again to my left. As Marty said, the Black Brook did join up there.
And also something else of probably major significance. So sporting significance, Man City originated here in this area. I'm going to show you a map now. I'm going to give you a little bit of a spiel on how Man City evolved in this area of West Gorton.
You're going to love this bit, aren't you? Because I know you love football.
Absolutely adore football. I talk about football all the time. No, I mean, from a historical point of view, it's interesting, but... Okay, so here's a map from the early 1900s, and I've tried to put the Cornbrook on just a crude blue line. You'll see there's a gap in the blue line, and that's a little section where the Cornbrook runs open. But we'll come to that. As we zoom in to the corner there, you'll see it says Manchester City Football Ground, and we're just near Galloways Boilers and a load of other works as well. So Manchester City's early roots were here on the border of Ardwick and West Gorton. And it seems that around about 1880, members of St Mark's Church of England, West Gorton, founded the roots of Manchester City Football Club, or what would become Manchester City Football Club. The top brass at Union Ironworks played a role as well. They were very keen to give the young men something to do. Just like today, there were problems with young fellas drinking and fighting. And so there was a lot of parish church identities and parish boundaries and Sunday schools and that kind of thing, and they all wanted a strong identity, and the Christians sort of favoured it very strongly. I'm going to read you a quote now from this book here. It's a book called A Man's Game by Andrew Keenan, and he gives us a good insight into the origins of Manchester City and also Gorton at the time. Okay, so this quote says it all, why the Christian leaders at the time were all in favour of football. Here it goes. A game that exhausted boys before they could fall victims to vice and idleness, which at the same time instilled the manly virtues absorbing and inflicting pain in equal proportions, which elevated the team above the individual, which bred courage, loyalty and discipline. And so Manchester City was born, or the origins of Manchester City was born. From St Mark's it would later become Ardwick AFC. The ground was so primitive it didn't have any changing facilities there, just some basic stands, and the team used to meet down here at the Hyde Road Hotel on nearby Hyde Road. Have a few drinks there, get changed and run up that side alley into the ground. So they basically use the pub for changing facilities. Looking at this map again, you can see, amazingly, that in front of one of the stands there was a railway branch that came from Bennett's Sidings round to Galloways Boilers next door. And it ran in front of the stand, if you're the eagle-eyed amongst you, you'll see. I'm going to show you a picture now looking this way, where in the indication of the arrow, from Britain from above. And if you take a look at that, you'll see Galloways Boilers in the background, but you can just make out where the old railway line went. The ground has gone, the football ground has long since gone, but you can just make out where the branch line and the railway line went into Galloways Boilers. Enjoying yourself?
Yeah.
No bag this time?
No bag of bricks.
So you'll see the low bit there where it's bricked and it's very low. Now we're in a bit of a brick-sided concrete top box kind of thing. The meter going off?
Yeah, it's the methane, mate, but obviously it's safe. They see the bubbles, but yeah, it doesn't like it, the meter's not happy.
Right, let's keep going, keep going.
You want to get that in here, so it looks going on. Safe. Stay to the side on this bit so you don't stir all this methane up.
And we're just struggling as per usual here, the usual struggle, walking all over bricks and all sorts. I've got a spider dangling down in front of my face now. This is just horrendous. Well, you can see all the bits of paper in, look, you can see bits of paper in it. We suspect that's toilet roll. We don't know, but we suspect it is. That's how bad it is. Right, so what's around the corner here now?
Well, you remember that little feature that you asked me where it was?
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in a minute, but that's just coming up here, near St Benedict's.
Right. There's all sorts of things coming in here. It's nice. We've even got power down there. I don't know if you've ever had a fish tank that you've not cleaned out for like a long time. Well, that's what it smells like down here. It's horrendous. And we're about to have a little bit of scene change now. Okay, so a change of culvert now. Now apparently there used to be a plant hire place above here, lots of heavy machinery. We don't know if it's collapsed or not. Brick base. If you can see that brick bottom. We've actually probably got a flow in here as well. Shitting hell, the double whammy bump out. These bricks would be interesting, but I can't be asked picking them up because it's filthy. There's the brick base. Imagine how long it took to do that. Side on as well. Now, if you're wondering where we are underground, this journey is probably quite straightforward in that we stick to this sort of corner of West Gorton near to Hyde Road. And we're probably just ahead of where the red arrow is. We're just ahead of there. And as we leave the area behind where Man City was, we need to mention Galloways Boilers. There was a lot of heavy engineering in Gorton and people were employed. It was very good for employment, although they worked long hours and it wasn't always safe work. But we have to mention Galloways because from the 1850s onwards they were making improvements to the Lancashire boiler. And at one point they boasted to be the biggest boiler works in the world. And so the fact that we're going probably underneath where Galloways were, we can't really ignore the Galloways boiler works. But you may be wondering, is there anything left of Galloways? What can we see today? Well, there's absolutely nothing. In fact, if we just look at this image on Google Earth here and we zoom into the building site, which is where Galloways were and where the Man City ground was, as we zoom in, we reckon all that's left is that wall there. Behind the wall, you'll see the housing estate. That's probably where Galloways was, the boiler works. But there's just that wall there that you can see that's very old, that has been maintained. And that's it. That's all that's left of one of the biggest boiler works in the world. Anyway, let's crack on. How far have we covered now?
We're probably just at over 5 kilometres now. It's about 4.8 from Ardwick, if you remember, in part 4. At that point, out of 6.8, journey to the infall. So yeah, just over 5 kilometres at this stage.
We've got a manhole here now.
It's in that yard, I'm not going up it, it's in the plant yard.
I've got a picture to show you soon, which is a cracking picture, but we'll come to that in a moment. And then we've got a little weir going on here. with a load of black, filthy, horrible, stagnating water behind it. How wonderful. Just turn it up here. Come on, park in. It's stuck in there. You can get stuck then.
I'll let it all through.
Right, well done. Horrible. So you can see again, it's black, it's filthy, it's horrible. The gas meter was going off earlier. Toilet paper here. Where's it coming from?
Right, so up here there's an old CSO. That's a sewer overflow to the layman. It's spilled into rivers at times of capacity. Now as we get round this corner up here, you'll see it. Stick your GoPro in. It's old looking. It's meant to be disused. It clearly isn't. Anyway, there's the evidence below our feet here.
Literally flowing with toilet paper, and a slight change in construction again now. No choice but to walk through it. The poo tends to break up into small pieces. So as you look here, you'll see a little bit of culvert joining onto an older part of culvert, and this is what was done. It was culverted over time. There were points where it ran open and then it was reculverted, and that will become apparent soon. This CSO here, so that's a very old sewer overflow.
It's in use.
Is it in use? In use. Right, so that drains, that's obviously an emergency drainage CSO, combined sewer overflow, that drains sewers in emergency when there's heavy rainfall, and it brings it all down here into here. As it looks dry at the moment, it looks disused, but it's not disused. In times of flood it will flow. Right, so this is the part I wanted to show you. At some point around this area, and it's difficult to pinpoint it, we're still on Bennett Street. Most of this episode runs alongside Bennett Street, but at some point the Cornbrook was banished underground. Allow me to explain. This scene now, you see St Benedict's Church back there and the tower. There's a photograph that was taken roughly in this place here now, and it completely and utterly haunts me because I can't sort of make sense of it. I can, but I can't. It's profound for me personally, and it's a view looking this way of the Cornbrook where it ran open at this point. So here we go. Here's our map dated late 1800s, early 1900s, and you'll see there's an open section, a very short open section of the Cornbrook there, and I want you to imagine you stood at the arrow and you're looking down Bennett Street towards St Benedict's Church marked by the little red cross. Also, I just want you to clock the electricity substation on Matthews Street as well. It's not often we can get photographs that relate to sections of rivers that were long since culverted. But here we go. And the tower of St Benedict's Church used to just look across Bennett Street to see Manchester City's ground, or the early Manchester City. But now if the tower looks in the opposite direction, it can still see Manchester City's ground after all these years. There it is, and the two seem to be inextricably linked.
So we're inside St Benedict's now, completed in 1880. J.S. Bennett was a prosperous stone merchant. He also served 2 terms of mayor, believe it or not, in Manchester. And he acquired this land, and he approached a guy called Crowther, who was a known architect, to build the site. Okay, £20,000 it cost, which was a lot of money back then.
So St Benedict's was declared defunct as a church in the early 2000s, and it's now a climbing centre. But when you go in, a lot of the original features are still there, and we had a walk round. They were fine with us walking around and filming. It's actually quite a wonderful place to look round. So the journey continues, and all the time we're kind of running parallel to Bennett Street in West Gorton. However, soon things will change. So when it changes, I'll get further up. Bit of minor snot there. Calcite deposits there coming through. Always nice to see. So massive change now. Look at this. Back in the day, look at that. Culvert ends and like a wooden thing there. I wonder if that was some sort of sluice gate or something. Culvert changes here. This was very industrial around here at one time. Wow. And it used to be lots of dye works and chemical works, and they probably all dumped into the Cornbrook. But look at this. This has been worked on and strengthened and everything. This is incredible. Now, as we're in West Gorton, we need to give two honorary mentions. First off, the 1960s ICL tower that sort of stood as like a big concrete 1960s beacon in the middle of a kind of council estate just out on the outskirts of Manchester that got demolished a few years ago now. I think it got demolished maybe 8-9 years ago, am I right? Could be. And also we can't forget, while we're on the subject of council estates, that the early series of Shameless, a comedy programme set on a council estate in Manchester, was set in this part of West Gorton. I think the set was down here somewhere, and then later they moved the set. But Shameless gave many a Mancunian a few belly laughs, and still worth a watch if you've not seen it. Okay, so time for a bit of an update on where we are and the progress we've made, because we are coming towards the back end of this journey. You may be pleased to know. Anyway, that's where we started over here, just by Bennett's sidings, a shadow of what they were. And what the Cornbrook has done is basically shadowed Bennett Street here. So we've kind of done this along Bennett Street. Things are about to change, because in this area here, we've now got Space Studios, and you've seen the architecture change, and it's changed for a reason because of what used to be here. But this is now Space Studios, and we've been here before and we've filmed in here. We were very kindly invited down to film. So what you're looking at now is this complex here. It's a big, they do film sets here, they do advertisements, they film anything that needs a large filming space they can do here. Now the eagle-eyed amongst you will notice that here is Journey's End, and this is the Cornbrook running open again for the first time since Pomona Island, just off Pottery Lane near Ashbridge Station. What's going to happen is, as we get further underneath Space Studios, we're going to hit an obstacle around about here, a low section, and it's going to cause us a problem. But before we do that, so what used to be here to cause this change in architecture underground? Let's go backwards. And you can see we've got the Gorton Brook Chemical Works, and that's what the Cornbrook is going underneath now. And you can see, just like today, the Cornbrook is running open there, but that's a whole other video, isn't it? So for whatever reason, the architecture's changed because we're going underneath Gorton Brook Chemical Works. They called it Gorton Brook. I presume that's after the Cornbrook. It can't be anything else, can it? Because they've built it over the top of the Cornbrook, so just called it Gorton Brook. But that is where we are, and if we go back to modern times, it's now Space Studios, and we're heading towards the end of the journey. Unfortunately, we're going to get beaten around here. So, let's crack on. We're heading to the upper reaches now of the underground section, and soon we'll meet with a grill where the Cornbrook falls in, infalls, and disappears forever if you're walking downstream, but obviously we're walking upstream. Girders here and all sorts of stuff. And you can see there, is that not evidence for things being sent into the Cornbrook? Is that not the smoking gun there? And a smoking gun indeed. That was a profound moment for me. That was a smoking gun from the 19th century. I've shown you that it used to be a chemical works above, and then that little penstock there just shows that they thought, right, yeah, no problem, we can release whatever we want down into the Cornbrook. And that's why a lot of these brooks and little waterways were called the Black Brook, because they just were filthy, horrible, lifeless watercourses. So that was a profound moment for me. That time stands still down here, and that shows the attitude to the watercourse back then. And you know, it's you're looking back in history, and this is why we do this, because when you get down underground like this, you really are seeing things from the past and things that were forgotten about but just still happen to be here. Anyway, I'll stop rambling now. Let's crack on.
Yeah, they would have discharged in there, wouldn't they?
I spent hours down there on my own photographing this mint. That's why I know why they were doing it. I spent 1 hour just photographing this bit to get a perfect picture. Yeah. It's so mint, isn't it?
Yeah.
Running into the bleach work now, so...
And what is interesting is these wooden beams poking out. Look at that. That's long since in the... oh, it's not wood, it's actually steel, isn't it? It's actually rotten steel, that. Wow. I wonder if these are pipes. They were, weren't they? They were pipes.
Oh, conduits for Rick Kate, I don't know. Conduits.
Absolutely rotten. Absolutely rotten. And you can see there, this is the same problem we had in Cornbrook 4 near the Apollo, all the erosion going on here. So it must get up to some speeds at some point and then erode the sides there. Bricks just completely gone. And the shelf there for James. The bar, James.
Wow.
The bar.
Wow. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but do they look like railway sweepers or narrow gauge tramway type rails? Possibly wrong.
All that? No, I think that's a purpose made. I mean, the metal. It does look a bit railwayish, but it's got a plate on the end, hasn't it? Look at the old brush there.
That wood?
Yeah.
That was a mechanism. Look how it lowers down from there.
Yeah.
It would have like lowered something down or suspend something or something.
Bloody hell. Very high down here. Pipe going across. And then, wow, Roy weren't lying when he said it weren't crawly, apart from that other bit. So whereabouts are we now?
Right, so here, if you look at the old maps, we're below what was called Gorton Chemical Works.
Yeah.
You'll have to pull the old maps up to show the people that. If you look at the ceiling here, there's like that up. Obviously that's all been replaced, it's not original, but this was below the what was known as Gorton Chemical Works.
Right.
We would have never thought it'd be this big though.
We haven't thought of this big.
No.
It's actually nice.
Yeah, I promise you no problem.
Right, so for such a small brook that's so sort of crawly further back there and horrendous, this bit is just incredibly big. It's almost cavernous, honestly, it's almost cavernous. But we're getting into shitty water again now.
This is one of the problems. You start to disturb mud that's been sat there for years undisturbed, and when you start walking through it like this, you then start to release gases and everything that's been sat down there for decades, and I mean decades, where nobody has walked in this.
Sit down. Smell that.
Jesus.
Right, why is it suddenly concrete like that?
Well, we'll come to that in a bit, but we're heading towards Pottery Lane now.
Yeah.
And again, it looks so much different back in the day. Don't want to give too much away at this stage, but when we get to the info, you'll remember probably in the 1980s, the whole area was landscaped and altered, and we'll talk about that a bit further up, yeah?
Okay.
Well, do all this in one night, the whole lot, halfway back, on my own.
This is shit before, so it's high, but it's still crap to walk in. What's that low bit down there?
Well, we'll come to that. We've just got to negotiate these fatbergs and this nastiness first.
Tell me we're not going through there, please.
Well, we're not, because actually we can get the other side of it for the purpose of this lot.
Right, because that is horrendous.
I know.
So
we had to go through there.
Right, so we're going to pop up on the other side of that. That's horrific. Right, what's going on now with meter?
Well, it's still lighting up like a Christmas tree because it's not happy with the amount of methane we kicked up.
Right. So everyone's doing that to get in the shots. It's very good like that.
It's absolutely horrendous.
Yeah.
And I never thought I'd ever be in this bit ever again.
Why is it going?
Like all the rest of it, and here we are again. Well, in a minute we're going to be stood the other side of this. So I'm going to turn the camera off, as you can see, bubbling away here. I'll have to turn the camera off in a minute, and we're going to re-emerge the other side of that lot. Meanwhile, as I head back, you see the orange air in the distance. The boys are there waiting patiently, because for some reason Martin said he weren't keen on going through that bit. I'm not sure why. But there we have it. It's not as bad as it looks, to be fair. I think its bark's worse than its bite, really.
So yes, we did miss this bit out. It's about 70 metres according to Roy, 230 feet. Now when you're this bent double and your face is near the water, you ultimately do splash water up in your face, in your eyes, and obviously the biggest threat down here is leptospirosis, and we weren't going to get that for the sake of just showing more of this that you've already seen. So we got out at this point, decided we'd rejoin the Cornbrook just after this section. Unfortunately, a number of months passed because the next section was a bit of a, shall we say, required some planning to get into. It was a bit of a logistical nightmare. So a couple of months has passed since Roy bent down and looked down that little low bit, and here we are, January 2025, and we're going to go and get on the other side of that low bit now. We've got to look the part on this one. That's why we've all got, we're all dressed as either Satsumas or Bongos. Bongo the banana there. Bongo 2.
I need to look up and get some footage in it. Did you manage to fit down there? No, it's good.
That squeeze?
Get bag on.
Right, so as you can see, this is the bit we avoided, and this is why we avoided it, because it's just black. It's filthy, and you can see how it is. And as it goes further down there, it gets lower from what I can see, and you're even you're sort of kissing the water basically. We weren't going to do it. You've not even missed anything. You've missed a small concrete section, a very short section, but you can see how horrendous it is. And then the roof slopes here, and you can stand up again. Let me get out of it. Right, you can see the water's filthy, as per usual, which we've been encountered on this one, and I'm assured that we just need wellies. So we'll see. Bongo the banana there is doing well. So we've got a little bit of root infiltration. Right, so Roy, tell us.
Yeah, so that low section last time we had to, as you said, go out and drop in to bypass that, because it is horrendous, spent double with water in your face, not the best you can see. This takes us to the grill, which is the actual infall over in West Gorton that we're walking up to in a minute. You can probably just not hear it. I'll let you explain all that when we get there.
Yeah, so final section. It's been a voyage of discovery for you, hasn't it, James?
Has been fun.
And Marcus, and we're grateful to Roy and Nick for getting us down here. Nick's played a blinder today, absolute blinder. But we've had logistical problems getting down here, but this man here has basically sorted it out. So yeah. So the final section, the final bit, and I can hear up ahead the infall, so let's go to it. Not the final bit of the Cornbrook, obviously, you understand, but the final bit of this awful underground section. So yeah, that's our ladder, that's where we got in. We had to go backwards a bit just to show you that low section we avoided. Obviously you can see we're in a concrete box, and this was probably slightly rejigged and slightly rerouted off its original course back in the 80s to go under the main Manchester Outer Ring Road. Very, very shallow here, bit of a relief to go for you. A little bit of sand, that's all. We're getting nearer and nearer now to the actual infall drill. And you just get forward and going past. Stop. And here we are. So from Promoter Island to Gorton. And the Cornbrook isn't over, but here begins the underground journey. Look at that. And so for us, the underground journey ends. But for the Cornbrook at this point, it's just beginning as it infalls into its long, dark, tortuous path. Obviously this is not the start of the Cornbrook, it runs open for a short time. And even when it runs open, it travels by stealth through a no man's land unseen. It will, however, disappear again under railway land, and then it can only be seen in small pipes. This is Roy 10 years ago scratching his head and plotting the route of the Cornbrook, and we are very, very grateful that he did. Now as we look out of the bars that make the debris screen, you'll see the walls either side of the Cornbrook. Well, those are all factory walls, and this was the view many, many years ago. Very industrial in this area. This photo, this sepia photo, is looking back the other way, looking towards the grill. And you'll see the Cornbrook is completely dwarfed again by factories. Now, take note of this. A little arch that you can just about make out there on the right-hand side. That is one of the Cornbrook's tributaries, the Clayton Brook. And in part 6, we've decided there will be a part 6. We'll be trying to investigate that lost little tributary and taking a look at where the Cornbrook runs in its now small pipes and trying to get towards the source as much as possible. So there you go. We'll see where we'll try and get to the source if we can. Okay, so thanks for watching.
Thanks for bearing with us on this arduous journey around Manchester.
We have, and it stinks.
You stink.
They stink. And anyway, I just want to thank Nick here for logistics and for helping out, and he's done a lot of behind the scenes stuff and particularly got us in here because it was a bit difficult. And thank you to Roy for your knowledge and like making us do it, but it's been well worth it because there are pictures in the reports but there's no videos about this place. You've done nothing. Come on guys.